Is there music?
Oh no, we don't have any sound.
No.
Oh, there's no sound.
No.
Let's see.
Oh no. No.
You guys are missing all of the music. I'm so sorry. Let's see. Hello, everyone. I hope that the sound came in eventually. So welcome to our little virtual event space here. I see that you guys have already discovered the chat. I love it so much. Keep doing that. We want all of the sound. So I am Allie. I am just going to be the host this evening. I am, if you're local, you might recognize me from the LFP location. And I am so excited to be introducing Kelly Herrington, Tracy Dobmeier, and Wendy Katzman here to discuss the debut novel, Girls with Bright Futures. So before we get into the fun stuff, I just want to really quickly say thank you guys so much for tuning in and for buying books. Your guys' support really is what keeps this place going, and we really love what we do. So if you also love what we do, go ahead, swing by, grab books, or if you're not local, we do ship. Shipping is just $3.50, and you get to support USPS too. So it's like an added bonus. I will be linking books in the chat all night long. So if you're looking to for just easy access to those, it's just a click away. And while you are over on the website, I definitely recommend checking out some of our other upcoming events or sign up for the newsletter. We will not spam you, but we've got some really fun stuff coming up in the next year. The newsletter will just be some quick, just like a really quick update. There won't be any spam. It's just exciting releases, new events coming up, and whatever fun we get up to around the bookstore. We do have a good time. We have blog posts and social media, recommendations. And speaking of social media, we are on all of the major platforms at Third Place Books, and it'll just be the quickest updates and recommendations from us to you. So we are here for about an hour. And towards the end, we will be taking questions. So if you have any questions, which I very much hope that you do, go ahead and leave those in the Q&A box, which will be either at the top of the screen or the bottom of your screen, depending on what you're tuning in for. There is a difference between the Q&A and the chat. I see you have all found the chat. I love it so much. But for the questions, head to Q&A so it's easier for us to find them. So without further ado, Tracy Dobmeier and Wendy Katzman have been great friends for 20 years, and between them have undergraduate degrees from Princeton University and the University of Michigan, a law degree from UC Berkeley, careers in marketing, nonprofit leadership, and biotechnology law. Of their combined 4 kids, 3 have gotten through college admission seasons without landing their parents in prison, which is good, because their debut novel is about the cutthroat college admission season for 3 girls all jockeying for admission to a top university, and what their mothers would be willing to do to get them into that dream school. In discussion with them tonight is Kelly Herrington, who is an expert on college selection. He has served on the National Association for College Admissions Counseling's Human Relations Committee, the Coca-Cola Scholarship Selection Committee, and numerous high school and college committees on access and equity. For the past 10 years, Kelly has volunteered in a program as a program advisor and college counselor for Hamilton Scholars, and he received the TCL Counselors That Changed Lives Award in 2013, among others. His articles have appeared in the Washington Post and the National Association for College Admissions Counseling Journal. So thank you all 3 for being here tonight. I am so excited to be a fly on the wall for this presentation. If you need anything, give me a shout, and that goes for everyone in the chat as well. I will be invisible but listening. And I'm just going to leave you in their capable hands. So don't forget to throw your questions in the Q&A, and I will see you all soon.
Congratulations, Wendy and Tracy. The title is Girls with Bright Futures, but this is a book with a very bright future. And I was overjoyed when you gave me a copy to read in advance. And I must confess that with my REI headlamp, I was up until 2, 3 in the morning because it was so riveting. So I am thrilled to be here as a son of a librarian and an English teacher. I love books. This is fantastic. A huge thank you to Third Place Books for hosting all of us this evening. And I want to be very clear that neither Wendy or Tracy, like the parents in the book, came off the rails during the college process. So this is not autobiographical in any way. So let's talk a little bit about the book. Girls with Bright Futures is the story of 3 prep school mothers whose daughters are locked in competition for a single spot at Stanford. As the competition heats up, an attempt is made on one of the girls' lives, sending this privileged community into a spiral of panic and accusations until one can't help but wonder if there's any line these families wouldn't cross to secure their daughters' futures. The book is a suspenseful read with a side of satire that takes a deep dive into the college industrial complex, income inequality, and elite entitlement. Wendy and Tracy have received significant advance praise for their debut, as they should. They've received prestigious starred reviews from the Library Journal and Publishers Weekly and have been included on one of the most anticipated books for 2021 by Newsweek, Parade, Refinery 29, Pop Sugar, and several more. And this is where I need you to chat in a huge congratulations to them. Today, Apple Best Books of February named Girls with Bright Futures. So please chat in the praise for this hot off the presses accolade that came today.
Thank you. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not a crier. I never have been, but I'm watching the chat go by and I'm having a little trouble keeping it together. Yep. So First of all, thank you so much to Third Place Books for hosting this, and Kelly, your generosity and spending this hour with us and talking about all things college. We so appreciate it. And all of you in the audience, oh my gosh, the names we're seeing go by, it's so heartwarming, and we just are so grateful to have your support and that you're spending an hour of your Monday night with us. And, you know, we have to say that when we started this project 5 years ago and dreamed of what our launch party might look like, we really didn't imagine being trapped in a box, unable to see all of you. So we really hope that at some point that will not be the case. But in the meantime, thank you all for being with us.
Right. And so nor did we imagine that we would possibly be so ecstatic over doing something called fusing our pods when we imagined tonight. But just please know that even though we can't hear you, we can see your comments, and we really feel your love and support and appreciate all of you for being here with us tonight. Thank you.
Fabulous. We're incredibly proud of you. We thought that we would start off with a little icebreaker about college essays. So wondering maybe if Wendy and Tracy want to share their college essay, and those of you who remember would want to chat it in, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so we'd be happy to do that, but
We need something from you.
right.
Yeah, we've had a number of friends email asking us if we can hear your Scott Hamilton tripping incident that made it somehow into a college essay. So yeah, so you need to tell us that, and then we'll share ours, which won't be nearly as good.
So before I worked in college admissions and became a college counselor, I moved away from home at a young age, and I was a nationally ranked figure skater. And I wrote my college essay about tripping an ice skater by the name of Scott Hamilton by accident. We were in an opening production number, and I was supposed to go one way, and I did not. And I hit that little man so hard with my hand, and he went down, and I had to go over and just pray and lift him back up and kind of push him towards the curtain. But that was very embarrassing. But what was more embarrassing was my outfit. If a Smurf in a UFO had made it, that's what my outfit looked like. It was blue and silver. And so the topic was embarrassing things happen, you pick yourself up and you keep moving forward. What were your essays?
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
You wanna go
So
first?
I'll go first. Not as funny. So mine was about, like, it was a theme of overcoming adversity. So when I was 12, I was a nationally ranked tennis player, and I had finished the year ranked 15th in the country. And a few weeks later, an undiagnosed birth defect was discovered, and I had to have like major emergency surgery. And I lost like a quarter of my body weight. And I went from being this like top athlete to not being able to walk to the end of our driveway. And so it was the story of overcoming that adversity and the tenacity that developed as a result of that.
And tenacity is definitely a word I would use to describe my dear friend Wendy here. So good job, you nailed it.
Thank you.
Yeah. My most memorable essay, I think, was ironically for Stanford. And the question I remember was, if you could create any holiday, what would it be and why? So my brilliant idea was to have a holiday called John McEnroe Day. The hallmark of which was that everyone in the country would be forced to go around all day long treating each other the way John McEnroe treated line judges and opponents and that sort of thing, the swearing and the throwing of stuff and that sort of thing. So the idea was that, in doing this for a day, we could show what an uncivil society might look like, so we would never have to live like that.
Prescient. Right. Okay, spoiler. That essay did get her into Stanford, but she went to Princeton.
It's true. I don't know how it got me in, but it did. Yeah.
Right. And we do kind of live that way now.
Yes,
So,
right.
yeah, your essay came true. Okay.
I love it. I love it. What I also would love is perhaps you could read for us some of your book. We would love to hear some of your favorite passages.
Okay.
All right, we can do that. Yes, we actually picked a pretty short, like a 3-minute segment, just to give you a taste. And we're not doing any spoilers because, most of our attendees haven't read the book yet. So, just to set the stage, so our story does feature three moms. Their names are Maren, Kelly, and Alicia. And this excerpt is from Kelly Vernon's first chapter. And Kelly is a Stanford alum who's a star volunteer at Elliott Bay Academy. And she's an expert information gatherer. And in this scene, Kelly has just received a call from her daughter Chrissy's college counselor, letting her know there's only one spot available at Stanford and suggesting Chrissy might want to consider exploring other options. The one question that the counselor refuses to answer is who else is applying to Stanford, which forces Kelly to try to answer the question herself. So Wendy's going to do most of the reading.
Here we go. All right, all this cyber stalking was time consuming, but Kelly firmly believed it was the school's fault for promoting a culture of secrecy. At last fall's junior year college kickoff meeting, Ms. Barstow had made clear that the school's community values required parents to refrain from talking to other parents about their students' college lists because of some nonsense about how the students were deserving of their privacy. Kelly had been gobsmacked by this. How are you not supposed to talk about the only thing on everyone's mind? She had thought it might be a joke, but Elliott Bay Academy never joked about anything. In the wake of Miss Barstow's edict, the main goal of every interaction between increasingly edgy and elusive moms became trying to ascertain where other kids were applying without giving away any of those same details about their own kids. The Big Brother effect didn't actually shut down the college gossip mill. It merely forced the whole enterprise underground. Kelly's phone chimed.
Diana Taylor to Kelly. Just heard Robin Riley shouting from the rooftops that Alexis got a likely letter from Harvard.
Kelly, oh, no big surprise there, but still, athletes. So annoying, taking all the spots.
Diana, Tenley said Greer went to the Whitman admissions presentation today. Think Augusta knows? Is it possible Greer might not get into Vanderbilt?
Kelly, well, Augusta said Vanderbilt told all legacy families not to count on getting in early, must be hedging their bets.
Diana, well, Vandy is the new Yale, right?
Kelly, have you heard of anyone else applying early to Stanford, besides Burke Stone, of course?
Diana, nope, but I did hear Graham told his mom he wants to go to UCLA or UVA.
Now, Graham was a strong student who took AP math and science classes and had scored a 33 on his ACT, according to his ex-girlfriend, a junior who was only too happy to spill the beans after he dumped her. What a relief to know he was not in the Stanford mix. Kelly, that's nuts. Why wouldn't he aim for Ivy Plus with his GPA and test scores? But at least he's not going for Brown or Stanford.
True, gotta go.
So Kelly reflected for a moment on how much her friendship with Diana had evolved over the past year. Last spring, with a straight face, Diana had delivered to Kelly what was obviously a stock college deflection line. We just happened to find ourselves in the middle of Rhode Island, so we thought we might as well check out Brown. But Kelly had known the truth. Tenley had already let it slip to Chrissy that her mom had taken her on a forced march to 12 East Coast schools over spring break, and Brown had been Tenley's favorite by far. Kelly had been relieved she didn't have to worry about Tenley applying to Stanford, especially since Diana's husband, Michael, was a successful venture capitalist who could write a large check to the school of Tenley's choice. Once it was clear there was no direct competition between their girls, Kelly and Diana had happily joined forces as college gossip co-conspirators.
That was excellent, and we're ready for you to do the audiobook. You're going to do your own audiobook.
A little known secret is that Wendy read most of our book out loud in my kitchen.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you have to hear what you're writing to make sure that it sort of is working. So she is a great reader.
Well, I too am the child of a librarian, so I think I come by this naturally.
Love it. Bring on the audiobook. In the chat, a parent said that their stress level was going up just hearing that dialogue back and forth.
Yeah.
And as a director of college counseling, I want to remind you that 75% of the colleges out there admit more than half of their applicants. So hopefully that can calm your stress level down.
That's great.
So we have some questions that we're going to ask, and please feel free in the Q&A at the very bottom of the Zoom webinar to chat in your questions, but do that in the Q&A for us. So thank you. So the first question that we have is, I understand you wrote Girls with Bright Futures before the Operation Varsity Blues college admissions scandal broke. How did you react when you learned of the scandal?
Well, our first thought was, wouldn't it be great if we could get Lori Loughlin or Felicity Huffman to blurb our book? The book I wish I'd read before my daughters applied to college.
Okay, but to be honest,
Yeah.
so when the scandal broke in March of 2019, we actually felt like the headlines had been ripped from our manuscript because we'd already plotted out this entire thing and we're nearly through writing the first draft. Given really the story that we were setting out to tell, we actually weren't all that surprised that there was criminal behavior, but we were definitely surprised by how brazen it was.
Yeah, and by the breadth of the conspiracy. I mean, it was just such a wide-ranging conspiracy that it was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We're curious, what was your reaction to Operation Varsity Blues when it broke?
Quite frankly, I wasn't surprised, and I was waiting for something like this to unfold. I wish I could tell you that I just was shocked by the egregious behavior, but many of us were kind of waiting for something like this to unfold. Just chatted in was a great comment, so please keep chatting in. We want this to be more of a discussion about the plot thickens, and we won't tell you what happens in the plot, but I have to tell you, when I said that I was reading it with my headlamp, the plot is unbelievable. It moves so quickly and it is so well thought out. So yes, the plot constantly thickens in this book. Another question is, why did you decide to write a book together, and why write about college admissions?
I'll start. Yeah. Okay. So why did we decide to write a book together? Well, so I mean, it really has its roots in our friendship. We've been friends for more than 20 years. And actually, before I knew Wendy, I actually met her husband, Van, in DC. And I'll tell a funny story on myself. That year, it was the year after college, and I was living in DC, and I dated not one, but two housemates of Van's in that same year. And so we always joke that it's a really good thing I never got around to dating Van.
Yeah, we might not be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we all ended up moving to Seattle. None of us are from here, and our husbands kind of knew each other professionally, and they'd run into each other and, you know, make those big, yeah, we should get together, like people in Seattle do, and then never make plans. So one day we were at the zoo and we ran into Eric and Tracy, and we were with our little boys who were really teeny at that point, and we were actually in front of the otter exhibit. And Tracy said, "Enough with these guys, just tell me your phone number," because this was before cell phones, and she had this like crazy trick where she remembered numbers. She still knows that number, and she called me the next day, and we have been friends ever since.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So
why college?
Yeah, so why college? So I guess you know, as we said, we've sent 3 kids off to college between us, but I think that the reason that it was so fascinating for us initially was because when our older kids were all in their high school years, each of our families experienced a pretty major health crisis, and it was a weird coincidence that, you know, we'd been friends for all these years, and then we both kind of had this experience of going through a really frenzied, you know, kind of daunting college experience at the same time that we were really worried, you know, about what was happening in our families. And so it sparked just so many discussions. I mean, we would go for walks, and we supported each other through a lot of tough times. And so originally it was this juxtaposition of health and college admissions that was our original inspiration for the story.
Wow. Do you go back to the zoo together?
I don't think we've ever been.
No, I took my nephew there this summer, and I walked by the otter exhibit. And
she texted me from it.
Texted me from it and said, "I'm here. I'm where it all started."
I love it. I love it. I have a young daughter, and I go to the zoo often, and I will think of you when I'm in front of the otters.
Thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful friendship.
We're lucky.
Very, very lucky. And I think, you know, what's so evident, I describe you as both as having just this warmth and this ability to light up a room, and your ability to connect with people and others. Like, you light up a room better than the Rockefeller Christmas tree at the holidays. Like, you have that presence and that gift. And this book really shows that. So congratulations again. I was wondering, do either of you have any background or training in writing fiction? I mean, you're incredibly accomplished. what was the impetus? Just like, we're going to write a book about admissions and fiction. How did this unfold?
Oh, let's see. So, that's a really good question. We had zero training writing fiction. I'm a lawyer by training. Wendy was a marketing executive, and we had both taken some time to raise our kids. And this was kind of something that we just wanted to try. We were really insecure about it in the beginning. And because we had no formal training and we didn't have an MFA, and there was this temptation, I think, on the front end to sort of be like, do we have what it takes? Maybe we should go to school. Maybe we should and a friend of mine once told me, and I've always remembered this, and it's that women often think they need more degrees, more training, more external validation to take on new career directions. And that's oftentimes just not true. I mean, if you're going to be like a rocket scientist, maybe that would be the truth. But, but for something, this was something that we felt like was hard, but potentially achievable. And we wanted to give it a try.
And a real turning point came for us. We read the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And it really spoke to us about just having the courage to try, to get in the arena and take that risk. And it's funny, we say that to our kids all the time. And like, if we want them to do it, we had to model it. We had to be willing to take those risks ourselves. So we did.
Yeah.
And
yeah, yeah. So we took the approach that we would just learn on the fly, teach ourselves and each other, and use all the resources that were publicly available to us.
I mean, as you saw, the first thing we did was Google, how do you write a novel? And then,
which is true,
which is 100% true.
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, we bought a ton of books, we read a ton of books, and Tracy's like an incredible student. And she, like, if you were in law school, I'm sure I would have wanted to have been in her section, because she would have had the best outlines. She would outline our books. She would highlight everything. Sometimes she'd give me the books after, and like every single thing had been highlighted.
Well, not everything, but most. Yeah. Then this was also when I started to realize that I was partnered with a spreadsheet monster.
Like in the best way.
In the very best way, but really, it was something. It was a sight to behold. So Wendy started just keeping track of everything, like dinner recipes. There's a spreadsheet for that. Every book we've ever read, there's a spreadsheet for that. So and I also we had a lot of fun times. So in the beginning, we would take like books that we thought were in our genre, or just told the stories in an interesting way, and we wanted to try and learn how to do it. So we would sort of map books. And so I remember one morning Wendy showed up with the book that she had promised to map, and she walks in and she slaps this book on the table, and I kid you not, there had to have been 5,000 Post-its coming out of every page, every edge of this book. And it was definitely kind of shades of A Beautiful Mind.
Again, in the best way.
Absolutely, in the very best way.
So, yeah.
I love it. And I wish that you could be reading the chat as it's coming in. It's just so beautiful. The risk was your magic. Women have to be 95% sure. Way to bet on your friendship and your dreams.
Oh.
So just
Thank you for reading those to us, because we can't see a lot of it. It stopped.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get a transcript.
Clearly your organizational skills are fabulous. There's a lot of people who want to be you right now, who are inspired. So I'll just keep sharing the chat as we go along.
Yeah.
Clearly, so on a more serious note, kind of motherhood and class divides are two key themes that resonate throughout this book. Without giving anything away, what do you want readers to take away from your social commentary on these topics?
You want to go first? Okay. I'll do the mother. I'll do the motherhood part. You do the class divide. Okay. Okay, so there are a lot of popular novels that explore competitive school environments, like Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty, The Gifted School by Bruce Holsinger. But all these focus on younger kids. So another reason we really wanted to focus on college admissions was because for a lot of women, where your child goes to college kind of feels like the ultimate report card on your mothering. And so as a result, they channel all this anxiety and worry into where their kids are going to go to college. And in fact, we even coined a diagnostic malady for this anxiety. And it didn't make it into this final version of Girls with Bright Futures, but we want to share it with you anyway, because we think it's really helpful. And Allie, if you want to put this definition in the chat, I'm going to read it right now, but it's called Parental Obsessive College Syndrome, POCS. So it's an anxiety syndrome in which parents of high school students suffer repeated paranoid thoughts and sensations concerning college admissions, compelling them to act in ways they would rather not admit. If severe and left untreated, POCS can destroy a person's capacity to function at work, maintain meaningful relationships, or even lead a comfortable existence in the home. So the good news about POCS is it's this fog that like it actually eventually lifts. Like we've seen it, and it lifts once your kids like safely ensconced in their dorm room in their first year. But it's a thing.
Yeah.
So next year in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that psychologists use, this is going to be there. And I've seen parents, right, that fall into this, and the fog does lift. And by November of their first year of college, almost every student couldn't picture themselves anywhere else. And so I'm so grateful that you brought up that point.
It is so true. Like we had that November when my son, after he went to college, we all came back together and kind of made care packages for the kids. And it was such a palpable difference of just like everyone found their place. It wasn't all perfect, like don't get me wrong, but like, just that fog lifts. Yeah,
Definitely.
it's true.
And
Okay.
beautiful. And what an apt metaphor here in Seattle.
Right.
Right. It's like
Clouds, yeah.
It's like living in a car wash, and then they graduate, the sun comes out, they go off to college, and they're happy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the second part of your question was about the class divide, and I can speak to that a little bit. So one of the reasons that we decided to set the book in Seattle, aside from the obvious fact that this is where we live, and so it's what we know, is because of the extreme wealth that's been generated through, tech mostly, but other aspects too, in a really relatively short span of time. And it's made the income inequality divide pretty stark here. And by the same token, Seattle also is one of the most politically progressive cities in the country. So we felt like it was just really fertile ground to explore notions of privilege. And schools, on top of that, are one of the places where people of all socioeconomic backgrounds come together ostensibly on equal footing. And so we felt like it was interesting to think about what happens when people with different levels of wealth or lack thereof inhabit the same community and then come into direct conflict. And we intentionally set up our story to show this. And while Seattle was, a great setting to explore these issues, we also do know for a fact that these same forces are affecting parents throughout the country and even the world, and Operation Varsity Blues just kind of, proved that fact. So, yeah.
So we're curious, like, what have you seen? How has parental anxiety evolved? Is it worse than 10 years ago? How's the pandemic affected it, for better or for worse?
Great question. And I just wanted to highlight before I answer that, how I was so grateful. I mean, the humor in the book, the sense of place is fabulous, but how you wove in such a serious topic in a really brilliant way. I want to commend you about how you addressed the class, and just did an excellent job with that.
Oh, thank you.
What have I seen? I used to say that the hardest part of my job was helping parents fall in love with their kids again, because they didn't see that greatness that was right there in front of them. They were just seeing what they felt the student needed to do to achieve admission at a particular place. I think the tide is shifting. And I think right now, the hardest part of my job is the student anxiety. And I don't know if it's social media, but I feel like the parents have kind of got the message, but now the students, I need to remind them of the skills that they have. And this is why when you land out of college, you're going to be just fine because of what you possess. And so that's kind of one of the big differences I've seen. I've also seen more dads become involved. And I wonder about that gender dynamic, and I worry about it a little bit with students who will say, my dad's never came to anything. He's never come to my performances. He's always working, but all of a sudden he's showing up at the college meeting. So it's sending a message to me that this is really, really important. And so that is something that I've seen shift a little bit as well.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, so that gender dynamic, is interesting to keep your finger on a little bit. Were you worried that people would think that this book is about them, or that some of the comments your characters make about any number of schools represent your own views?
Well, do you want me to answer this?
Yeah, why don't you take it?
Okay. So, like, we set out to tell a very specific story, and then we created characters to serve that purpose. We spent a lot of time researching and thinking about how to tell this particular story, and so that's why we have 3 moms from 3 different socioeconomic classes in order to make these points about the class divide and the college industrial complex, trying to get at these larger social things. So really, we created the story and breathed life into these characters and not the other way around. But it's, it's a risk when you're writing contemporary fiction that people would confuse that and play some parlor game of who's who. But that's simply not the case. This is from our imagination. Yes.
Definitely. And with regard to references that our characters make to colleges and universities, we actually made like a really conscious decision to lean into the stereotypes that tend to float around high school communities to show how damaging they can be. So, I mean, I think we went through and we counted, I think we
50
have
schools,
50 schools that we mentioned, and not, always in a very flattering light, but it's because we're trying to show that people are making these comments and these value judgments, and it can be really hurtful when people aren't careful. So, so that was kind of our approach there. It's, it wasn't a safe approach, but it felt like if you're going to take on a subject like college, you have to just speak you have to kind of lay it out there so people can kind of see how that, resonates through a community.
Really, really well put. And as a counselor, I was appreciative that you had a breadth of schools there that you talked about, and you went for it and you were honest and upfront. So again, I commend you. We've got some great questions that have been chatted in, and I want to encourage everybody to continue to do so using the Q&A. But one question here that I thought was really excellent. You have such smart friends and such smart fans already. So kudos to everybody out there for your comments. Keep the chat coming in. It's just beautiful to see. Your fan club is vast, as it should be. One of the questions was, I imagine you both wear a badge of persistence and tenacity, which you absolutely do. Can you talk about the process as writers and how it relates to the college admissions process? So what were the parallels with the college admissions process to the actual writing process of the book?
Well, I mean, I can take a first stab at
Okay.
that. So,
Good question.
yeah, that's interesting. So one of the, so I'm just going to tell my story here. So basically, when my younger son was applying to college, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I was going through this process, like going through a very grueling treatment, while Wendy and I were finishing manuscripts, like applying for agents, and my son's applying to college. And one great parallel for this whole thing is rejection. Like there is a lot of rejection, and at one point it was kind of like my son and I were almost in sort of it was almost like a fun competition, like who could be rejected the most, did you get a rejection today? I did, so it was, but it was very, I think I don't know if that's quite answering the question, but it was the writing process and the college admissions, it's all the same. It's all just putting your best foot forward, trying hard, putting yourself out there, trying to make the best decisions you can, and risking, rejection. That's going to happen sometimes, and sometimes you're better off for it, sometimes you're not, and and resilience is what matters. You just keep pushing forward. And
Right.
so that's what we had to do as writers.
And then
And as
eventually,
people.
right, but your son ended up at his,
Absolutely. I don't mean
School,
to say my son,
right.
my son ended up at a fantastic
Right,
school.
and
He's
very
super
happy. Right.
Yeah, right.
and we ended up with the perfect agent for us.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you do have to go through those rejections to find, you end up where you're meant to be. But I think the resilience was huge. This is a tough business, and life is tough. And so it was a great learning experience. It was a great learning.
Yeah, definitely.
I am so ready for you to be interviewed on the Today Show. I'm so ready to be interviewed by Terry Gross. You guys, you're pros. You are absolutely brilliant. Wonderful. One of the questions that got chatted in was, how did you research the book? And is there anything that you learned during your research that kind of was like, whoa, that just blew my mind?
Oh, can I start with that?
Yeah, you start.
Well, we read a ton of books, and there were a couple of books that really stood out. So there was one, Excellent Sheep, The Miseducation of the American Elite by William Dershowitz, which that one for me was just kind of looking at the whole college industrial complex and the history of it. Fascinating. Highly recommend that one. But we also read books about the short and tragic life of Robert Peace, that, as well as Just Mercy, where we were trying to understand issues of class that were around us, and race.
Yeah.
And so those were really helpful.
Let's see. There's Frank Rooney.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Where you go is not who you'll be.
There was Caitlin Flanagan wrote articles in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of people trying to pick apart a lot of the anxiety, the 9.9% article.
Oh, that was the best one.
That was the best one.
It was like the New Aristocracy, I think it was called. Yeah.
In the Atlantic.
Yeah. And that was that was really illuminating, because that was all about the class, the real class divide, and how what we've kind of ended up with income inequality is we have this 0.1%, and then there's the next 0.9%, and then everyone else is kind of out in the cold. And so in some ways that actually was some of our structure for our three main characters, because we often kind of referred to the wealthiest character as Alicia, and we called her in our heads, she was the uber wealthy character. And then Kelly, who doesn't feel wealthy, but by all measures, she is very wealthy. She's got 3 kids in private school. She stays home. She's got all this, but she feels like the merely wealthy, and so she's kind of in that, that whatever, that
9.9%.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
It was 9.9%.
No, I can't do math.
I think it was 9%.
Yeah.
That's why we're writers.
Yeah.
They said there'd be no math involved in this.
0.01. You got it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was great. So we read a lot, and we talked a lot, and we kind of, in fact, before we were going to write fiction, we actually were going to write a nonfiction book. And some of
we
that.
should tell you what that was.
Yeah, you tell.
Well, we were inspired by Aziz Ansari's book, Modern Romance, that was written with a sociologist
from Columbia.
And
I don't remember his name.
Eric, somebody.
Yeah.
And I'll remember in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so we were going to write this book, but this all kind of started looking at friendship, among women our age. And kind of a sociological study of that. But then we soon realized we're not sociologists and we're not comedians. And that's where she said on February 27th, 2016, hey, what if we wrote fiction? And then that's where all this went. Yeah.
Kind of very long, convoluted answer, but
yeah,
that's often how our brainstorming sessions go.
Right.
So you've just been on a walk with us
right.
through Capitol Hill, where we talked in circles.
Yeah.
Well, again, we're so grateful that you decided to write this book, and we would happily read any nonfiction book that you write.
That won't be as much fun.
Fiction's way more fun. It's way more fun to make it up.
Yeah.
Were there any moments in the book when the story just wasn't flowing and you had that writer's block, and how did you get that groove back? Was it on those walks in Capitol Hill?
I'll start.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do believe this book, there was something magical about it. It like fell out of us. And when you guys read it, you'll see there are so many twists and turns. And it was pretty remarkable that when we read it, like it worked.
Yeah. We were really nervous the first time we put all the scenes together. We had mapped everything out, we had written it, and then we were like, is this going to work at all, or is this just going to be a complete disaster? And the first time we read it through, we just sort of looked at each other and said, wow, that actually works. But I think it worked because this was not our first manuscript. Our first manuscript, as you saw in the video, was rejected by 19 publishers or something like that. I can't remember the exact number. Was that what it? Yeah,
I think
it was a lot.
It was a lot.
It was painful. But we learned a lot from that process. And so, so I feel like when we were finally ready, and we had these great conversations with our agent, and just finally we just kind of we put in the work, and we just kept churning, and we finally, when we hit this idea and we figured it out, then it did, like Wendy said, it just fell out of us. But it wasn't like one day magic, we just had this epiphany and suddenly a book appeared. So it's all been a process over 5 years.
Yep.
And it did flow. I mean, it just flowed. And so many of the things that you touched upon, you were kind of ahead of your time. Like with the Varsity Blues scandal, you kind of saw that coming, the way that you wrote this. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there's some data around science that weaves its way in a little bit, and which was just so timely. And when you read the book, you will figure out what I'm referring to there with science and data. But I just was, again, so impressed with how it flowed. Is this a story that would have resonated 10 or 20 years ago? Or do you think that the admissions dynamics have evolved in dramatic ways?
That seems like a better question for you. 20 years ago, I mean, I had like toddlers, I don't know.
So I've been doing this 26 years, and I would say that, yes, lots of this story would resonate then, particularly around kind of class and privilege and the expectation of landing at brand name institutions. So kind of the entitlement was the same 20, 30 years ago. I think what certainly is not the same is the volume of applications that students have to submit that you talked about a little bit. I call it the touring, the admissions touring as tourism. My parents said, you apply to college, you apply to 4 colleges, then you'll go visit, right? After you get in. And so you touched a little bit upon kind of the demonstrated interest that some schools, that not all schools require. And that certainly wasn't the case many years ago. Also, the characters are applying via an early process to college, and early action and early decision to ways that students apply to colleges in November really didn't exist the way that it does now. So I think that's really an excellent question. And I'm sure that you have some things that you might want to add.
You handled that really well.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like, it's an interesting question, because it does feel like the stakes have gotten higher, but it's hard to know why. My, theory and our theory, because we've talked about it, is that it's because of income inequality, and that there's just somehow this feeling that the middle ground is gone. And so people are like worried that their kids are either going to be like totally successful or, utter failures. And so, and I do think that that's been a phenomenon that we've seen really with that income, inequality divide has grown dramatically over the last 20 years. So I don't know, I don't have any data to necessarily support that. And I'm, again, not a sociologist, but that's just my gut feeling, is that it has gotten a lot worse. And then there's the whole college industrial complex on top of it that's really
it's insidious.
It's insidious, and it's basically built up to prey on anxious parents. And your parents are just getting, like, from the time your kids are you know, in 9th or 10th grade, the College Board has sold your kids' PSAT scores to every college, and then they're all sending you emails and trying to get your kids to apply just so they can reject them. And, you know, it's just, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Well, like
Yeah.
the tutoring, and then the leadership opportunities, the summer opportunities, the youth sports, it becomes this opportunities arms race that, again, and no parent wants to be the one that falls down on the job. And it's almost like they all know that. And it's like when you have a baby, and why do you end up with like 3 strollers? Because, you know, if you don't get the right stroller, your kid might not go to Stanford.
One of the things that I think is really great that's changed, but nobody reads about this, is the research on outcomes. And over the past 20 years, there's a lot of research that's not about where you go, it's how you go. And you referenced the Frank Bruni book with that title. It's not where you go to college, but how you go. And just the great outcomes that happen at a myriad of different schools. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and the speaker said to people in the audience, I want you to turn around to the people who are sitting next to you and tell them where you went to college. And so we all did that. And then he said, how many of you had a transformative college experience? And pretty much everybody's hand went up. And he said, and you probably mentioned 300 different colleges in this room right now, but it's easy to go down that rabbit hole. And I understand that. I work with parents every day. I get that. I'm a parent myself, so I understand that tunnel vision that sometimes happens. So on a lighter note,
Okay.
This has been chatted in a couple of times, and I think maybe it's because we're doing this around the dinner hour or right after dinner. What's the best snack when you were writing?
Oh,
That's easy.
well, our snack or our
Well,
favorite lunch.
okay, well, let's just have them all.
I know.
Yeah.
Like,
We eat a lot of popcorn. Skinny pop popcorn is our afternoon snack.
a ton of apples.
Yeah,
Apples and
with-
peanut butter.
Yeah, I eat almond butter and she has
Like
peanut butter, and we have that almost every day. And
The tuna.
tuna, yep.
So there's this great tuna at, what's the name of the market?
Conan Steiner.
Oh, Conan Steiner on Capitol Hill has this great tuna. And we would go out on walks and try to get this tuna because they don't always have it. It gets delivered.
It's not like we're fishing. It's just like, it's like a package.
It's a package of like tuna salad. This is part of the writing process.
Yeah.
So like we kept not being able to get the tuna. So then we like researched who the supplier was, and then we reverse engineered it.
Yeah.
So that we could have the tuna.
Yes, so now we can make the tuna.
Whenever we want to
Yeah.
have it.
Yeah, it's not quite as good, but it probably has a little less mayonnaise.
It's probably a little bit better for
Yeah.
us. But the tuna's big. And then
Yeah.
like your grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So so we basically, we could talk about food all night.
I know.
So
that she makes. I just eat it. That's really why I'm in this relationship. I come for the food.
Wendy's not a foodie, but she does like my food.
I like
so
her
it's good.
food.
Yeah.
I just
So
don't want to think about food. Yeah.
once every few months, during this whole writing process, up until COVID, we would go on a retreat. We would just kind of, which, sounds fancier than it is, but we would basically just go somewhere for a weekend and write and work and not do laundry. And when we did that, we would basically work like 15 hours a day, and our husbands would be like, you did what? Like, did you guys like have some wine? We're like, no, that interferes with the writing. But we did have every night, we would really look forward to our Beecher's grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup. So that's what we're gonna have tonight after this.
And I'm gonna plug something here. So
Yeah.
we have this really awesome book group event guide, right? That's what it's called. Right, book club event
Club
guide.
program.
Right. And in it has a Spotify playlist. It has a parenting style, really funny parenting style quiz. But it also has the recipe for the Beecher's cheese, grilled cheese sandwiches and Tracy's killer tomato soup. So you can find that on our website, dobmeierkatzman.com. But it's really good. And someone wants to know, Lee, no dark chocolate and red wine. We did have the dark chocolate. We eat a lot of dark chocolate.
No red wine. It keeps me up.
Yeah, but the dark chocolate's good for you. So we eat it as a health food.
You're making me very hungry. I'm gonna go home tonight and make that grilled cheese with tomato and definitely have the wine with the dark chocolate. So thank you for those suggestions. As we're getting kind of towards the end here, we have some questions about the launch and kind of what's happening next. So as you've launched this book, what do you hope for the book moving forward over the next year?
Oh, what do we hope? Well, okay. So our dream was to write a book, which we have done.
Yeah.
And now we're excited she's going to be out there. And we're really excited to connect with readers.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And yeah.
Yeah, we're excited to have conversations. We're excited to, hopefully someday in person. We did like the idea at one point of being able to travel around and, see people in different cities, and hopefully we'll get to do that at some point. But in terms of, I think we're going to just keep working on the next book. I mean, we're super excited, and we'll do, everything that we can to get it out there because we believe in our book and we're happy to have people read it. And we'd love to have the conversations around it, but we're also just excited for the next chapter, so to speak.
Well, we're excited to read whatever you write next.
Oh, thank you.
Really, we need to celebrate you tonight and celebrate this moment and all the years, right, that have gone into this. It's year 5, essentially.
Yeah, we're coming up on our anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I'm beaming all night because I just, like so many people here that you can't see, we're just so incredibly proud of you. And especially during COVID, just to see an inspirational story. Like, not only is the book fabulous, but your relationship, your story, and how you made this happen and how you chipped away. And I think it's a charge to all of us, like if we've got that dream, to really go out and go for it. So thank you again. Is there, we'll do 2 more questions.
Okay.
Is there a moral to this story or a message that you'd like to convey?
Interesting
It
question.
is an interesting question
Yeah.
because we didn't really
Well,
set out, we certainly didn't set out to be the morality police when we wrote this story. We had a lot of anxiety and pressure, even with what was happening with our families from this health crisis. And so we really wanted to, we were seeing the detrimental effects that were happening around this whole college craziness with our kids and our communities, friendships. And we just thought it was a really tough time for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think there was a morality aspect as much as just really wanting to understand the phenomenon. We just live in this time where there are so many different forces at work, and we just kind of wanted to, have some fun, and sort of push our characters to kind of do, pretty crazy stuff, and still keep them, hopefully this side of caricature, but push them far enough that it would make people think. And that's one of the fun things about fiction, is that you can theoretically, you can try on other people's lives, you can make mistakes, and you don't have to pay for them. So for us, it was more that than trying to tell a morality tale necessarily. It was more just trying to, set the conditions so that people could make their own judgments,
Right.
About how they want to live their lives.
And then we also hope that it would stimulate conversation.
Yeah.
About a lot of these issues that a lot of people are dealing with. That's a big hope for us, is that it will get people to talk about a wide range of social justice issues.
I absolutely think it will. The way that you've written this book, it absolutely will. Do you have any final words that you want to share? This is your moment. So pretend you're giving your speech. There's going to be many awards where you're going to go on stage. So let's practice here tonight.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Well, I am going to do it again. I did a little plug for the book club again. We want people to talk about it. Allie, if you're there, if you want to put the link in the chat for the book club, it's I think it's a great topic it will stimulate a lot of conversation. And we've got this really fun event guide. We will be zooming into a limited number of book clubs, and that information is on our website. And so check it out, invite us, because we'd love to have a conversation with you and your friends. And Tracy's gonna say more, but I just want to say thank you to you, to Third Place Books, and to everybody who is out there. This was so much fun. Thank you.
So much fun. Can I just sit here for 10 minutes and read all the comments?
I know, these aren't gonna go away, are they? Allie, are we reading a transcript? Right.
I'm gonna do my best to make that happen.
Thank you. I've seen just little blips. I love to read it.
So fun.
So yeah, I guess I'll just end the same place we started by thanking Allie, Third Place Books, thanking you, Kelly, for spending this hour with us, and all of you for being here and supporting us and loving us. And we are so grateful for everyone in our lives, and we look forward to meeting. If there are new readers out there, we're so excited to meet you too. And we're gonna celebrate. Right, we're gonna, as soon as we get off, our celebration is starting, but rest assured that we will be toasting all of you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You guys, this was so much fun. This was such a great conversation to listen in on. Everyone in the chat, you're making me smile so much. This excitement, this energy is so great. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all of the rest of you being here. Go ahead and check out all of the links in the chat. Go buy books. Let's spread it far and wide. Bring it to your book clubs. And I think this is good night.
Oh, one other thing. If you read the book, leave a review.
Yes, that helps so much. I cannot stress enough.
Especially debut authors, it really does help. So that would be our humble request. Yeah.
Even if it's 20 words, 10 words, do it. It's worth it. It helps a lot. So, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.